Thank you. I've got 15 minutes to explain a whole lot of the battery industry to you without dissolving into alphabet blah blah, so that'll be interesting. This is a mine to commodity project, so we dig it out of the ground and sell it at 25,000 US a tonne at the other end, so there's a fair bit to go through. Let's start off with what is LFP. Essentially, Benchmark Minerals projects there'll be two dominant battery types in the future. One will be NMC, we're pretty familiar with. The other one is LFP. So LFP is, you take the nickel at $25,000 a tonne, you replace it with phosphate at $1,500 a tonne. It's cheaper, it's simpler. The LFP batteries last about twice as long, so 5,000 cycles instead of 2,500. They're a little bit heavy, about a third, but essentially it's a simpler, more stable battery. So the Chinese EV industry runs on LFP, not on NMC. 95% of LFP batteries are made in China. Tesla now runs on LFP batteries, so it's very much the battery of the future. See if we get this little gizmo to work. There we go. One disclaimer. Nice picture of a truck down the bottom as well. So the project is going to basically produce three products. First of all, a direct ship ore we expect to move in the next few months. LFP cathode material, which is the LFP battery grade powder, and thermal phosphoric acid. That's the key to actually making the LFP. So Brett Clark was going to present today, but he's at home in bed with COVID. This will be his third battery metals project. We've got two directors who are native Chinese speakers. They now have Australian passports. Myself down the bottom, and Steve, our geologist, who's at the back of the room. My background was from Worley, running phosphate projects. I was the global director of phosphates. Our path forward is we've just published our scoping study about 4 weeks ago that explains the whole project, and that's essentially what this presentation's about. We intend to launch our DSO project. We have a test pit going ahead planned in about 8 weeks, and we intend to then roll that into the DSO. We need some mining data around yields before we can publish our feasibility study. Essentially, we're looking to roll that fairly quickly. The phosphate price is at a high price, so the economics are fairly clear. We'll then use the DSO to fund our bankable feasibility for the LFP project. The bankable feasibility is fairly straightforward. We're going straight from scoping to bankable feasibility. First of all, because we have the funds. Secondly, because we've actually purchased the technology off somebody else. We're copying an existing plant. So I've physically walked through the plant, I've seen it, and I've said I want one of those in Australia. It's not a complicated BFS. And we'll then put down as many trains as we have funding. The trains in the battery field are quite small, only 10,000 tonnes each. What's different about us? Why would you bother? First of all, we've got one of Australia's largest high-grade phosphate mineral deposits. We have so much phosphate, we have given up drilling. We just simply don't need any more. One of the simulations gave us more than 100 years phosphate resource of battery-grade phosphate. We have a very unusual chemistry, which means that we can actually use a thermal process. Normally phosphate's purified using a wet acid, sulfuric acid process. The thermal process is a lot simpler and it's a much lower capex operation. We can build either a TPA plant or LFP plant. The thermal phosphoric acid is the best grade of phosphoric acid. It's what we can do with our particular geology. Since I've walked through the door in this conference, that's all I've been asked about. We're 6 kilometres from a road. We have a gas pipeline on site, very strong government support. I recommend the NT government as a place to work with. We've got an alliance with Alice. Alice is our technology licensor. 95% of LFP is produced in China. They're the only company outside China licensing the technology, and they are Taiwanese, so they can't work in China. So this is essentially the process. We dig out the rock, we convert it to yellow phosphorus, we then truck and rail to Adelaide, convert to thermal phosphoric acid, and then at LFP plant. So those two plants in the middle, they're the equivalent of a lithium hydroxide refinery. In Darwin, we mix it with the lithium, we mix it with battery grade iron and the acid, It's a one-pot process. It's a gel-based process, low capex. We then go into that product is a powder that then goes into LFP factory, which has two parts. You make the packs or the gels. They then go to the battery, and then it goes to the cars. So that's basically the battery industry. Our DSO project, it's direct ship ore. It's not terribly complicated. Dig it out of the ground, put it in a ship. I don't want to complicate it terribly much. There are some issues associated with just the yield of lumps to fines, which is the reason we're actually doing our test pit. We're going to relabel it. The cut-off grade is going to be 27%, and the average grade will be 28.5% for the direct ship ore. That doesn't come out in those numbers. We're just doing a high grading. We don't need a process or anything. We literally dig it out of the ground, get the lumps, put it in a shipping container and send it overseas. Feasibility study, we need our yield ratio lumps to fines, then I can publish a feasibility study. Mining Plus has done the work for us. We've got most of the way through our mining management plan. We have an existing camp on site that we can use. It's owned by our Indigenous friends who are actually very cooperative, very easy to work with. We have road, rail and port all fully tendered. We are at we've received the RFQs and we hope to award in the next few weeks. And the traditional landowner agreements are also progressing well. The LFP project, essentially we're making the LFP CAM, which is the upgraded version of NCM or the new version. It's a battery powder. I won't bore you with the details. Why use LFP? First of all, it's lower cost. Secondly, it doesn't catch fire. Thirdly, you get about twice as many cycles. So an NCM battery has about 2,500 cycles. LFP has about 5,000. So you change the battery, instead of at about 40,000 kilometres, you change it at about 80 or 100,000. Obviously, car owners would prefer that. Basically, most cars will probably use LFP except for sports models that are very powder weight sensitive. LFP is about 30% cheaper than the nearest alternative. That's the major reason it'll go forward. It's all about cost. The market projections for LFP are very, very rapid growth. I think we've all seen these projections. But at the moment, 95% of LFP is made in China, and there's a very strong push on for non-China supply chains, particularly with countries that have a history of geopolitical agitation. Our target market is Japan and South Korea. So we've completed the LFP scoping study done by Bechtel. They have a specialist battery chemistry unit. They actually went to the Taiwanese plant and inspected it, and the instructions were, please replicate that in Australia. It's not excessively complicated. We're planning a one train at 10,000 tonnes per annum. When we have funding for that, we'll just build out more trains. We've done a one train and a three train. The scoping study goes further, but that's what we want to take to market. We have a cost plus mechanism. So the way the pricing works is all of our costs are the costs. They're audited by our customers. We then have a fixed margin that we add to that that's agreed with the customer. So we basically have a guaranteed margin. And that does include the price of the materials, sort of exposure to the lithium price. I'll show how that trickles through to the economics in a few moments. There's nothing in this project that isn't proven or off-the-shelf technology. I was in Korea last week. All the equipment we can buy. So you're literally buying individual pieces of equipment and putting them together. It's not a highly complex project. There are quite a few steps, but it's all off-the-shelf equipment. 10,000 train is the top line. So IRR 22%, which is fantastic for a manufacturing project. Essentially what you're buying here isn't IRR, it's cash flow. So it's a little, the manufacturing project's a little bit different from a lot of the minerals projects. Now the base case we have to do on a benchmark pricing forecast. So that's a $25,000 long-term US price for lithium. If you take today's price, you go to the right-hand column, which is about $80,000 for lithium price, and the IRR is about 44-45%. So if you assume the price stays up there, that's what we're getting. Obviously, it's the cash flow that you're buying. We've got a 20-year mine life. We stopped at 20 years because that was the logical thing to do. The phosphate won't run out in my lifetime or probably yours. So I assume my lithium friends can keep supplying us with lithium. We'll keep making it. So why would you put an LFP plant in either Darwin or Perth? Our focus at this stage is Darwin. The reason is that it's logistics. 55% by mass of the feed material to an LFP plant is phosphoric acid. Okay, lithium's only 19% and the iron powder is 26%. So it's about logistics. Essentially, the ship's carrying hydroxide from Perth, sail right past Darwin, we offload them, make LFP powder, put it back on again and send it to South Korea and Japan. That's basically it. There are currently global disruptions in the phosphate market due to the issues in China and Russia. And most of us are probably aware of that. Happy to discuss those in more detail if you want to. The market for EVs is expanding very rapidly. So the market is in supply deficit. There's not enough production capacity. Seeking off-takers is not really a problem. It's merely a matter of building the plant. The IRA Act in the US, for those of you familiar with that, is looking to reduce demand from Chinese battery imports. Australia can send this product to the USA without any penalties. So the USA is a potential third market for us. Our partnership to release is key. They are the only licensor outside of China who's actually licensing technology. They have also licensed Freya, a company in Norway and Finland, and ICL, a company in the USA. So we're the only LFP supplier of world scale in Asia, outside of China. They will provide operations staff. They will provide the detailed process flows. They'll actually provide complete data sheets, and they'll provide us with a list of preferred vendors. And the last time they showed me the list, each one of their equipment items had 3 vendors with a circle around their preferred vendor. So that's the level of detail we go to, and we haven't even started the bankable yet. And this is high purity materials, very, very, very high purity materials, so they're going to run exactly the same. It's not a mineral resource where every mineral is different. With ultra high purity battery materials, it should run exactly the same. Elise currently markets products to all the majors, Toyota, LG, Samsung, Kyocera. This is the process route. I won't go into it unless anyone's particularly interested. I love it. No one else really cares. This is the funding strategy. We're seeking funding to finance the 1 train LFP plant with investments as appropriate. My chairman is a merchant banker. This is more his area than mine. My job is to produce a bankable feasibility study. So essentially, we're looking to advance the feasibility study, finish off negotiations with Elise. We need a definitive contract with them. We're most of the way through that. Site selection, we have excellent cooperation with the NT government. They have a number of sites where environmental approvals are very, very advanced. Our mining operation already has environmental approval for a mine and a thermal phosphoric acid processing plant. That's a legacy of a previous project. And I must emphasize, if you look up my background, I've done some research. This is not a research project. Avenira has done some research into phosphoric acid. None of the previous research projects are being used. This is all off-the-shelf technology. We always get asked that question because of our backgrounds. We're currently involved in funding discussions with a number of partners. Does anyone have any questions? Fantastic. I'll be in the booth if you've got any more questions. Thank you for your time.